There's no better way to start off 2025 for the UFC than to feed us an Apex card after having 3 weeks of withdrawals. Okay, it's officially day 22 of no UFC, no live UFC. And what do we have to look forward to? We have an Apex card headlined by a female main event. And look at this poster right now. We got striking defense. We got takedown accuracy statistics on a poster. I can't remember seeing that before. Okay, they really had to pull out all the stops to feed us this, to deal with what we had to deal with for the past 3, almost, it's going to be 4 weeks by the time the fights actually happen. But we do have a nice little pay-per-view to happen the week after, and I can't wait for that one. This one is just going to feed into the addiction a little bit, and we're going to go through and we're going to break down every single fight. I'm going to give you my early lean. But if you're new to the channel, the early leans are what I'm thinking, before pre-tape, just basically what I know. And I didn't want to break down this card too early because yesterday we had 2 fights fall out and then we got 2 replacements. So that work that we would have done before would have went to nothing. But here we go. We got UFC Vegas 101. I'll give you the early lean for every single fight. And the official picks will be out later in the week. And we're going to stick with the best bet show. Because the last time I put out the best bet show, everyone was like, no, we need it back in 2025. Please, please, please. Okay, you got it. Let's get into it with the first fight of the night. Joe Solecki stepping in on short notice to take on Nurullo Aliev. And this Aliev guy, 9-0. I could not think of a more picture-perfect representation of a Khabib Nurmagomedov. Is he at the level of Khabib Nurmagomedov? Probably not. But the way he fights, the way he looks, and the way he maneuvers around the octagon is awfully similar to the guy. And I have to think, he's trying to be Khabib 2.0. Its nickname's literally Tajik Eagle. Now, he's probably got enough in his tank to beat Joe Solecki here. Because Joe Solecki, we would boil him down to a jiu-jitsu nerd. And his last fight, not that impressive. The fight before that, not that impressive. So it hasn't really been impressing too much as of late. But he does have some nasty jiu-jitsu in his bag. But I did watch Nurullo Aliev's last fight against Rafael Alves. And the dude got put in some of the nastiest guillotines I've ever seen. And he found his way out of those. So in all reality, it's probably going to be Nurullo Aliev getting the takedowns. Crotch sniffing, laying on his chest, and Joe Solecki's probably not going to do much to get back up to his feet because he did nothing against Grant Dawson to get back up to his feet. He was just trying to play guard, looking for some type of sub. Not going to happen. Now, against Aliev, who's a little bit less experienced than Grant Dawson, could he make a mistake? Probably, but I don't really expect him to. He's very young, so yes, he could make a mistake, but he's been off for a while. That's also something you got to take into account. I don't think Aliev's time off was probably planned. It's probably due to some type of injuries. I don't know, maybe some visa issues. You never know. But considering that he's young, if he did have some injuries, I'm sure he's able to bounce back from that. And with the time off, he's probably improved some things. So Nurullo Aliev is going to be the early lean here just because I don't think too much of Joe Solecki, not much of a striking game. Really just a jiu-jitsu player off his back. And Aliev is probably just going to get takedowns, rack up the control time, and get a win here. So it's going to be the V ending last name for me, and I'll take Nurullo Aliev for the early lean. Let's move on. We got Victoria Dudakova taking on Fatima Kline. And this betting line is pretty insane, just considering it's women's MMA for one, and Fatima Kline is 0-1 in the UFC, and she's going to be a minus 1,000 favorite, which is a little bit nuts. I mean, the hype on this girl was insane coming into the UFC, just considering she's what, Aaron Blanchfield's like best buddy or training partner. Cool. She was a double weight class champ in Fury FC. Like, what's ever good has come out of Fury FC? Not much. And then she comes into the UFC, faces Jasmine Jasudavicius on short notice. Up a weight class. Well, not really up a weight class because she fights in 125 as well. But 115 is more suited for her. And she was a favorite to Jasmine Jasudavicius. And she got ragdolled. So here she is in her second UFC fight against Dudakova, who Dudakova is, she's Russian, but she's not really all that. She does have some decent skills, though. I mean, she's somewhat athletic in there. She's not the strongest girl. She doesn't have the best cardio. She's just there. And she's going to be a tough out. She's a tough girl. But Fatima Kline probably got the better overall technique, overall skills, and I could see why she's the favorite here. But she is pretty high of a favorite. And I would not advise taking her at that type of price. But either way, I think she probably does have enough on the feet to outstrike Dudakova. I think she probably has enough of a grappling game to outgrapple Dudakova. And I think she probably wins this fight. So I will take Fatima Kline to pick up a UFC victory here, her first UFC victory here. But Dudakova could just go in there, look to survive, look to be okay, and it could be a 29-28. You never know. I'll take Fatima Kline, though, for the early lean. And let's move on to the light heavyweight division. We got Magomed Gadzhiyasulov taking on Bruno Lopes. Could be Lopes, could be Lopez. I think it's Lopes. But I think Bruno Lopes has a decent chance to pull this one off. Now, he's the underdog here, but mainly that is because I think Bruno Lopes has some solid skills, and I don't really think Gadzhiyasulov is all that great. His Dana White Contender Series fight against Jose Medina was brutal just because, yes, he won, but Jose Medina is garbage, like straight up garbage. And Gadzhiyasulov, I don't want to say he was like cracking him bad. Like he was beating him, but like I feel like he should have put his foot to the gas and tried to get him out of there. But that's not really his game. And he's going to go in there and he's just going to try to win. Whatever way he can win, whether that's outstriking you and just being faster, or in his last fight against Ribeiro, he was getting kind of pieced up. He didn't have the athleticism edge in that one, so he found his way on top with the takedowns. So there is that nice little ability to feel out the fight and go with what he needs to get a win. So I got to give him that, but I don't think he's all that. I don't think he's going to be moving up in the ranks like crazily unless he starts to get on some sauce and he just turns into an absolute superhero. But either way, Gadzhiyasulov, probably the better overall well-rounded game, better anti-volatile style just because he's going to go in there and just try to win. Bruno Lopes probably going to be looking for more of a finish. I think he probably going to have a little bit more power in his hands. I don't think his takedown defense is going to be that great, but I do think he has a pretty solid ground game as far as submissions go. So upside for finishing the fight probably goes to Bruno Lopes, in my opinion. But I think Gadzhiyasulov might just have enough to survive in those spots, be smarter, get the fight to where he needs to be, to where he's in the positions that he wants to be. So I'll take Gadzhiyasulov for the early lean, and I think he probably wins the decision here. And Bruno Lopes, he's kind of a wild card, though, because we saw him on the Contender Series. He was a big favorite, and he was cracking Ribeiro with some shots, but then, bang, he got cracked a couple times, and he got put out. So if he gets into a brawl with Gadzhiyasulov, he could come out with the win, but he could also get dropped as well. So it's a very volatile fight for me. So give me Gadzhiyasulov for the early lean, light heavyweights, low level, disgusting. Moving on, more women's MMA. Gotta love it. Ernesta Kareckaite taking on Nicole Caliari. And it's a flyweight bout where we have a 5'9" Kareckaite taking on a 5'3" Caliari. There's going to be some intangibles coming into this one for Kareckaite just because she's going to be bigger and longer than most girls that she's going to fight at 125. Caliari is not really a big 125er. But she does have some solid Muay Thai. She does have an improving ground game. We saw that on the Contender Series where I bet on her to get a win over La Framboise, and she got the round one submission win. Looked great doing it. She gets a contract, and she takes on Kareckaite, who is coming off a loss, which was a pretty close fight. It was a pretty close fight, and she had her moments, especially later in the fight when Barbosa was starting to gas out. And I think Caliari could come in here, have some success on the inside as long as she's not in the Thai clinch. I know she has some solid Muay Thai, but she's just going to be outgunned as far as the length goes because Kareckaite's got a pretty solid Muay Thai clinch as well with those knees up the middle just being longer, being more feisty. And I think Caliari, if she wants to win this fight, she's going to have to get this fight to the ground because Kareckaite doesn't have a great ground game, and she is mildly inexperienced. So this one's a toss-up to me, and I think I'm just going to side with Caliari as the slight dog for the early lean. But if I get into my tape research and I see Cagliari is having trouble at range, then I might have to flip my pick because Kareckaite is going to have success at range. She's going to have success at range against most girls at 125. And if Cagliari doesn't have the ability to close the distance, get on the inside, rip some shots, rip some leg kicks from the outside, just movement, she can't stand at kicking range and expect to win this fight. So it is going to come down to some type of fight IQ, and that's really tough to trust with women's MMA sometimes. Tough to trust with any type of MMA fight a lot of times, unless they've shown to have good fight IQ. So inexperience from both girls. Cagliari is going to be the early lean just because she's the dog, and I don't really think Kareckaite is the most well-rounded fighter, but she's going to be the better striker here. So let's move on from that. Women's flyweight, gotta love it. Prelim, welterweight, Preston Parsons taking on Jacoby Smith. And this is a great one because it was supposed to be Preston Parsons versus Andreas Gustafsson, which was also going to be an exciting one. But Jacoby Smith picking up the short notice fight here. And this is one of the better prospects from the Dana White Contender Series. I think this guy is a beast. The problem is the level of competition has not been great. And, even his Contender Series fight, it was against a guy that is like a Canadian journeyman. And, Jacoby was a big favorite in that. He did exactly what he needed to do. But I do think he looked like he should have been a massive favorite. And that does say a lot. Like, if you go into a fight, you're a sizable favorite, minus 600 or higher, or even minus 500 or higher, and you just absolutely dominate that fight, then great. But if you go into a fight and you're minus 500 and you're winning a 29-28 or 30-27 type of victory, not great. Jacoby Smith dominated that fight in all realms. So I got to give him that. Even though his level of competition isn't great, the guy has amazing abilities with his wrestling. His striking looks solid. He's an AKA guy, was an AKA guy. Now he trains at Fortis MMA. He's a beast. Dude's a beast. But Preston Parsons, on the other hand, more UFC experience. He's fought really solid guys in the UFC as well. He's coming off that loss to Oban Elliott, where Oban pretty much did a lot of the things that I think Jacoby Smith could do. Stuff takedowns, strike at range, get in on the inside, get your own takedowns. I think that's probably what happens. I think Jacoby Smith probably has enough to beat Preston Parsons here, because Preston Parsons, at his base, is a jiu-jitsu player who has solid wrestling, and his striking has improved over the years. So I don't think Preston Parsons is going to come in here and just be able to stuff takedowns and outstrike Jacoby Smith. I think Preston Parsons is going to have to get takedowns, which is going to be tough against, D1 wrestler and Jacoby Smith. It's going to be tough to get takedowns on Jacoby Smith. And if he doesn't do that, what is he going to have to do? If Jacoby Smith is going for takedowns, he's probably going to have to look to play jiu-jitsu. And I think Jacoby Smith probably has enough jiu-jitsu in his bag, or at least enough top control wrestling and chain wrestling to stifle that. So I think Jacoby Smith probably takes this one. I'll take Jacoby Smith for the early lean. And we can move on. Thiago Moises taking on Trey Ogden. Very, very weird fight here, just considering Thiago only loses to some of the best of the best. In his last performance against Ludwig Kline, he didn't look great. But that's also because I think Ludwig Kline is a really solid fighter. And after watching Ludwig Kline versus Thiago Moises, I'm like, okay, how good is Ludwig Kline? Because if you beat Thiago Moises, you're going to be in the top 15, in the top 10 pretty soon. And then we didn't really see that from Ludwig Kline. He fought Roosevelt Roberts his next fight and barely won. Very weird. But here we are. Thiago Moises, Trey Ogden. Trey Ogden's 35. 6 years older than Thiago Moises. Does that make sense to anybody? Not really. Thiago's still very young. He's not even 30, which is crazy. But a long-time American top team guy. I think he's been training at Fighting Nerds as well, which is cool. I don't exactly know what he's going to pick up at 29 years of age after training all this time at American Top Team that he didn't already have. You never know. Maybe Fighting Nerds got that secret sauce that Thiago's just going to go in there and look like John Silva, Carlos Prates. His striking's just going to be off the charts. You never know. Could be. But at his base, he's a jiu-jitsu guy. His wrestling has always kind of struggled against the higher level of competition, and his striking is okay it's solid against the lower level competition. Where's Trey Ogden in that? Trey Ogden always has great game plans. That's what I love about Trey. I've made some good money on Trey. Always has good game plans, and he's willing to stick to them. And he has some skills to back it up. He has decent striking. He's got a nice little jab, nice little leg kick. And then he's going to look to clinch you up, get you down to the ground, be heavy on top, get into positions where he's dominant. He's going to be position over submission in almost every realm. I don't think he's going to submit Thiago Moises. I don't really think Thiago's going to submit Trey Ogden. So I think it's going to come down to who can win the minutes on the feet, and then who can mix in a takedown or two to where it kind of separates what's happening on the feet. And I think that could be Trey Ogden. I think it could, because I know the guy has great game plans and he's always willing to stick to it. So if he's going to come in here, how do you beat Thiago Moises? You bring some pressure, you get him out of his comfort zone, you be very physical in the clinch, because that's what Ludwig Kline did. Thiago Moises was in deep on his hips, which is very physical, strong hips, hunkered down, didn't allow anything, and that kind of got to Thiago. He's like, I can't take this guy down. What am I going to do? And he was getting pieced up on the feet. I think Trey Ogden might have those abilities. The age does worry me a little bit, but he has looked great as of late. So I think Trey Ogden might take this one. I'm going to take him as my early lean, but I am going to watch some more film on this one just to see how Trey could look against another guy that's a very solid grappler. Did lose to Jordan Levitt back in the day, but that was back in the day. Trey Ogden's the early lean as of right now. Let's move on. Marco Tulio taking on Ihor Potieria. So Ihor is always one of those guys who you're going to count out, but he's never going to look terrible until he gets finished. You know, he's always going to look a little bit flashy, light on his feet, especially at 185. He's a big guy. But then there's the time where he just gets chinned and then he gets choked out, or he's, trying to hold Cesar Almeida up against the cage, and it's just weird stuff. Okay, Ihor Potieria is a wild card. Marco Tulio, coming in off the Contender Series, wasn't super impressed with his fight on the Contender Series this year. I wasn't super impressed with his fight on the Contender Series the year before that. I think the guy's okay. He's a strong guy, decent overall, but I don't think he has some skills that's going to bring him into the top 25, top 20. He's going to be one of these middling guys from shoot to box that could put on some fun fights, but I don't think he's going to be anything too great. At 12-1, it looks a lot better than, can't really say it looks better than 21-7, because Ihor's record was so padded before he got to the UFC. But Ihor's 1-4 in his last 5. He's a big dog here. I don't really agree with that, just because I don't think Tulio is some wizard that's just going to go out there and knock out Potieria in the first round like he would kind of need to be to cover minus 450. But I think Tulio probably wins just because he's a little bit more technical. I think he's probably a little bit more durable, and I think he has the skills to beat Potieria. Where does Potieria lack? Wrestling, jiu-jitsu, and just technical striking. Potieria is more of a brawler. He wants to double jab, flick the jab out there and then throw a big left hand, look for a big right hook. Tulio is a little bit more calculated with his Muay Thai, throws the kicks out there, gets you up against the cage, and then looks for the big right hand. I think Tulio probably wins this one. Heavy price tag, but he is the early lean. Not one that I'm super interested in betting on, to be honest. But this is my early leans, not really bets. Jose Johnson taking on Felipe Bunes. It's an interesting one for me because Jose Johnson, massive dude, always going to be, that's going to jump off the board. 6 foot, 71.5-inch reach at flyweight. We're talking 125 pounders. Felipe Bunes, not a small guy either, though, at 125. 5'7", 71-inch reach. Very long, can match the reach, just can't match the height. Bunes, training out of Pitbull Brothers. He's 35 years of age. I hate that for, moving forward. Bunes is not going to have a long UFC career. He's 35, and he hasn't had much of a UFC career. So there's that. But Jose Johnson, at 16-9, the guy's lost 9 times. He hasn't looked that great in the UFC, but he does have some skills. He's very fast for being how tall he is and how long he is. He's very fast, very explosive. His jiu-jitsu is good at times, but he is lacking defensively at times. And maybe that's where Bunes can take over here. I think Bunes can probably match some of the striking. I don't know that he has the cardio to keep it up for 3 rounds, but I think he can match some of the striking. I think he can get takedowns on Jose Johnson. Johnson doesn't have great takedown defense. And once he is on the ground, if he can find a position that is advantageous to him, then he could probably submit Jose Johnson. It doesn't take too much to submit Jose Johnson. Long limbs, long neck, it's going to be out there. But if he doesn't do that, how does he look on the feet with Jose Johnson? Can he handle the explosive movements coming at him? Can he handle the length and the height? We'll see. I don't think Bunes is some great fighter at flyweight. I don't think Jose Johnson is either. I think this is a low-level fight between 2 guys that are big and long, and we're going to see who comes out. But I think Bunes could probably mix in some takedowns, get top control against Jose Johnson. And if Johnson can't get back up to his feet, and if he makes a mistake on the ground, he's going to lose. So I think Felipe Bunes might be a nice little dog here. He is my early lean, but I do want to look at some more tape on Bunes, see how well he wrestles, especially on the regional scene. He hasn't had that many UFC fights. I think he's only had 1. He's lost against Joshua Van. Joshua Van's a good fighter, but we'll see. Bunes is the early lean. Before we get into the main card, I'm going to tell you about the Homo Fight Picks, which is my betting service. Homo Fight is the company. I am one of the captors. I'm the head of betting for Homo Fight in the Homo Fight Picks premium membership, which you can join with the link down in the description. In 2024, the year we're just coming off of, I was up over 100 units. The year before that, 2023, I was positive nearly 45 units. So we more than doubled our 2023 results in 2024. So if we could double our 2024 results, we're going to be in some great company. Now, if you join the Winnable, you'll get all my bets every single week for UFC, for PFL, for Dana White Contender Series, and maybe the GFL, because we got the GFL this year. So there's a link down in the description. That's where you're going to get all of my bets, especially early in the week. Very big deal because lines tend to move. So you're going to get those sent directly to your phone with a text message through Winnable. Once I put the play out, boom, you check your phone. You're going to get a text message. You click on it. You're going to see the play. You're going to put the play in so you don't miss the line. It's automatic. It goes right to your phone. Homo Fight Picks. That's where you're going to get all my bets. Link down in the description below. And fellas, if you need a sports book, I get questions all the time. Where are you betting on these fights? You live in Florida. I live in Florida, and the only sports book available for us that is based in the U.S. is Hard Rock Bet. Now, a lot of times, Hard Rock Bet has terrible lines, so you have to line shop, and that's why you should have multiple sports books, especially offshore sports books, because a lot of times offshore sports books have some of the best lines. And Wager Attack is an offshore sports book. It's available in all 50 states. These offshores are available in all 50 states because they're based outside of the U.S., so they're not governed by the U.S., so they're available in the U.S. And a lot of you guys don't live in a state. You maybe live in Texas where sports betting isn't legal. Where I lived in Texas before, sports betting isn't legal, so you can't use a DraftKings, you can't use a FanDuel, you can't use an ESPN bet, none of that. You can't even use a Hard Rock Bet. So you don't have access to any of these sports books. That's why you use an offshore sports book. Head over to Wager Attack. There's a link down in the description below. It's one of my favorite sites. They're solid lines, solid stuff out there. You get a 200% free play bonus. You get a 10% cash bonus if you deposit with crypto. So you have the choice to take the 200% free play bonus once you deposit, and that's through every deposit. And then 100% or 10% cash bonus on crypto deposits as well every single time. So if you're into crypto and you got crypto you want to bet with, Boom, deposit it on the Wager Attack. There's a link down in the description below to sign up. It's available in all 50 states. You should have multiple sports books that you're checking lines on so that you get the best value. Slow game for you. Let's get into it, the main card. Punahele Soriano taking on Uros Medic. Very weird one for me because I don't know how Punahele looks at 170. His one fight at 170 didn't really tell me much because Miguel Baeza didn't do much other than lay on his back. And could that be because Soriano was that good at wrestling at 170? I highly doubt it. But if he does have that wrestling at 170, then Uros Medic is in trouble because he's always really struggled with the wrestling in his career. But he is going to be a far better striker than Punahele. He's going to be faster. He's going to be more powerful. He's going to have more weapons on the feet. Just can he stuff the takedowns of Punahele Soriano? And will Soriano actually wrestle in this fight? We'll see. But I think Uros Medic probably has enough to win this one. Now, he's the favorite. Kind of makes sense. But I do think he probably has enough. He's a very sharp striker. I love this guy striking. But it's just, can he stuff the takedowns? I'm going to say he does. I'm going to say he does because I don't really think Soriano's last fight against Baeza was indicative of his wrestling success. I just looked at Baeza, and Baeza was doing nothing. He was just literally doing nothing. And before that, Soriano was a shell of himself until he moved down to 170, which is more of his weight class, but I just don't really see how he replicates that type of fight against Uros Medic. I think Medic will be more willing to go back up to his feet than Baeza was. I think he probably wins here. So I'll take Uros Medic for the early lean. Austin Bashi, Christian Rodriguez. Very interesting fight here. Love Bashi as a prospect. And Christian Rodriguez coming off a loss, which a lot of people lost money on. Me personally, I did not. But I was looking at Christian Rodriguez and I'm thinking, this guy is a very solid fighter because he has all the abilities to survive. He has all the abilities to survive. He's been through the ringer with these prospects, Raul Rosas Jr., Cameron Simon, Isaac Dulgarian, and he's just able to survive. Even Jonathan Pierce back in the day. He's just able to survive these very offensive fighters and then start to take over. And then, boom, his last fight against Arosa, he gets caught in a guillotine. So then he's not able to survive. But that was in Denver. And maybe the altitude had got to him. Maybe he burned himself too much. It was towards the end of the round, and maybe he was just super tired. It wasn't really a guillotine that looked like he was crazy locked in, like there was no chance he was going to get out. It kind of looked more like a panic tap. Like the guy was tired, and he got locked into that guillotine, and he was like, I'm tired, panic tap. How does he bounce back from that? Bashi, love the guy's prospect. He's 23. Even his I want to say pre-UFC tape, but the tape leading up to the Dana White Contender Series, you could tell this guy's really good. And then he goes out on the Contender Series, massive favorite. He looks really, really good. It kind of reminds me of like a Marab style, just takedowns, constant pressure, chain wrestle, to the point where he got his back in round 2, submitted him, and he looked great doing it. The thing here is Christian Rodriguez has fought a lot of these guys before. Like Bashi, kind of similar to Isaac Dulgarian, to where he's going to be able to survive early and then start to take over. But I also don't think Bashi's a guy that's going to gas out. He just doesn't really look like a guy that's ever going to slow down. Being that young, having that wrestling cardio, having that wrestling pace, getting to positions that he likes. It's interesting to me. And another thing is, Bashi is not a big 145er, but neither is Christian Rodriguez. So I tend to lean towards Bashi to win this fight. But, at minus 235 for a guy making his UFC debut is a little bit tough, just considering we've seen Christian Rodriguez win against prospects before. So I think Bashi probably wins. He is my early lean, but I don't necessarily agree with the line just because I think Rodriguez does have great striking, solid jiu-jitsu, solid wrestling, solid cardio. So he's not going to be outmatched too much in this one, but I think Bashi probably is able to get takedowns, win most of the first 2 rounds, and I don't think his cardio is going to fall off a cliff. So I'll take Bashi for the early lean. Chris Curtis, Roman Kopylov. Great fight here. Love this fight. Love this fight because I think it's going to be a striker's delight unless Roman Kopylov decides to do what he did in his last fight and sniff some crotch, lay in that guard and pick up a win that way. We'll see. But either way, Roman Kopylov, solid kickboxer, southpaw, great jab, great 1-2, great body kick, loves that body kick, solid low kicks. But he does have some flaws throughout his UFC career to where I'm like, didn't look great in that spot. You know, he's getting clipped by Claudio Ribeiro. Not great. Started to gas out against Cesar Almeida. It's not great. And really had to resort to getting some takedowns to where Cesar Almeida was literally jumping as his takedown defense, just jumping in the air. I don't know what that was about. But he does have some solid skills. Chris Curtis, on the other hand, brutal loss his last time out. Very close fight. Pretty much came down to the last 13 seconds when his hamstring tore and looked like he was about to keel over and die. Otherwise, he might have won that fight. And that says a lot because he's 37 years of age. Maybe his body is giving out on him. He's had a lot of fights. I mean, he's 42 fights. 42 fights. This will be his 43rd. He's always in the gym training. I know he has really zoned in on his physical health in the last year or two, which is smart. But there is a point in time where an MMA fighter, your body just can't keep up with it anymore. And Kopylov is a guy that's probably going to be testing that. He's going to be ripping kicks to the leg. He's going to be ripping kicks to the body. He's going to be punching your face. And Chris Curtis, throughout his entire MMA career, has been pretty one-dimensional. It's just all boxing. He's not going to throw a ton of kicks. He'll throw a few leg kicks in there, but it's pretty much all boxing. And he's had a lot of success with that because he's got a massive head. He's got really clean combinations, and he's had pretty solid takedown defense throughout his UFC career. I don't even want to say pretty solid. It's been really solid. So it's going to come down to, can Chris Curtis win the moments when they're in the pocket? Because I think Kopylov's going to win from the outside. Can Chris Curtis get into the pocket? Can he get Kopylov up against the cage on least combinations? Possibly, because it's going to be the smaller cage at the Apex. Chris Curtis has fought at the Apex many, many times, so he knows the cage very, very well. And Kopylov's a guy that probably wants to keep his range and stay at kicking range. I think Chris Curtis at plus 210 is, I don't want to say disrespectful, but I think it's more of the book saying this guy's on the decline. And I tend to agree, but if he does have some stuff left, he could definitely beat Roman Kopylov. He could definitely beat Roman Kopylov. So I'm tending to lean towards Chris Curtis as the value side, but I think Kopylov might be just a little bit too much. Just being younger, better at range, mixing up the weapons a little bit more. And it's a 3-round fight where Chris Curtis does tend to give up the first round pretty easily because he likes to download, likes to figure out his spots. So he's going to give up the first round, and then he's got to win the last two or find a knockout. And I don't really like that. I think Kopylov probably starts a little bit hotter and picks up a decision victory here against Chris Curtis. I'll take Kopylov for the early lean, but like I said, betting line is a little bit wide in my opinion. Feature bout. One thing you could pick up as a UFC fan, feature bouts, they usually like to pick a fight where they expect a knockout. And this one is where they're expecting a knockout. Abdulrazak Alhassan is knockout or bust. And Cesar Almeida is a longtime kickboxer. Both guys are over the 36 years of age mark, so probably don't have the best durability anymore. Alhassan, to me, is going to be bigger than Cesar Almeida just because he's a couple inches shorter, but he just looks a lot thicker than Cesar Almeida. Probably going to have more power. He's not going to have the technique. He's not going to have the angles. It's more of a throw-in and hoping type of thing from Alhassan. And Cesar Almeida is going to be looking to set up shots, kick the legs, smack the overhand right. It really does come down to Cesar Almeida. Can he stuff takedowns? Does Alhassan shoot takedowns? If Alhassan shoots takedowns, Cesar Almeida's takedown defense is garbage. So there's a path for Alhassan if he's going to be looking for takedowns. He's going to be looking for the judo throws. He's always got that in his back pocket. But I don't really see it, man. At 39 years of age, does he want to just pick up a win by laying and praying? Probably not. Probably wants a performance bonus. Probably wants a knockout. And if he tries that, he could definitely get it. But I think Cesar Almeida is probably going to be more sharp on the feet. He's the better kickboxer. I'll take Cesar Almeida for the early pick. But these are two old guys who like the knockout, who one of them is still very inexperienced in MMA. Has no takedown defense. It's probably one I'm going to lay off, but Cesar Almeida is going to be the early pick. Co-main event, Santiago Ponzinibbio, Carlston Harris. Couple of old guys again. Ponzi's 38. Harris is 37 and a half. We're going to throw the half in there because it's real. Carlston Harris coming off a KO loss to Chaos Williams, which maybe not something to hang your head about, but at 37, when you're getting knocked out, it's never good. And Ponzinibbio, he's had a tough run of it, but he's not getting smoked. He's not getting brutally knocked out. I mean, he got knocked out by Kevin Holland, but he's not getting brutally knocked out and to the point where he's not competitive. And I think Ponzinibbio could probably come in here, be more aggressive, have sharper striking. I've never looked at Carlston Harris' striking, and I'm like, yeah, this is good. No, it always looks bad to me. It always looks like this guy doesn't know how to throw a punch. Like he's throwing shots like this. Like he's punching like this. Like, what are we doing? So, never been a big guy on Carlston Harris. He does have some decent grappling, nice little anaconda choke, which Ponzinibbio is going to have to watch out for. But I don't think Carlston Harris is going to be looking for takedowns on Ponzi. And if they're going to stand and bang it out, I think I'm going to take Ponzi here, man. I think I'm going to take Ponzi. I think Ponzi could probably look for that double jab overhand right, smack some leg kicks in there, and he's just a guy that's going to go to war. I don't know if Carlston Harris is the guy that's going to go to war. He's never really been in these wars. I think Ponzinibbio can bring in that forward pressure, put the pressure on, small cage, get on the inside, let the hands go, and pull off a victory. So, two old guys, I'll take the older guy in Santiago Ponzinibbio. That brings us to the main event, where we have a rematch between Mackenzie Dern and Amanda Ribas, and can we really expect this fight to go any other way? Because Mackenzie Dern lost the first fight to Amanda Ribas, and what have we seen since then? Mackenzie Dern, still not a good striker. Still doesn't have good wrestling. Doesn't have a submission win since like 2021. It's almost 4 years that she's supposed to be some jiu-jitsu ace, and she hasn't had a submission in almost 4 years. So her submission package ain't working out at the higher level. Her striking, not really working out because she's aggressive and she'll throw caution to the wind, but her striking isn't good. She's just very tough. She has a great will to win, which you have to respect. But so does Amanda Ribas. Amanda Ribas is very tough. She does have some flaws in her career of getting chinned, which is not good. But she's very tough. She's willing to battle through adversity. She has great takedown defense, great takedowns, great ground game, great positions when she is on the ground. I think she's probably just got Mackenzie Dern outgunned here. Like, her striking's going to be a lot better. She's going to be a lot better at range. She's not going to get submitted by Mackenzie Dern unless she gets caught in something crazy. I mean, Dern is a great black belt, but she hasn't had a submission win in almost 4 years. So, is she going to get one here? No. I think Ribas is probably going to win most of the minutes. The thing where Mackenzie Dern could win this fight is if Ribas is put on the back foot and isn't able to get much going. Because there is times where Mackenzie Dern's, like her last fight, just kind of wins fights based on being more aggressive. She's a very aggressive fighter, and she has the toughness to deal with that. But I think Ribas is probably going to be able to match that, and I think Ribas probably wins. So I'll take Amanda Ribas for the early lean, and that'll do it for the video. Appreciate you all for watching. We'll be back here later in the week with the official picks. The Best Bet show later in the week as well. Maybe we'll throw a little live stream out there, get the chat in here, talk about the fights, maybe talk about UFC 311. We'll see. Appreciate you all for watching. Like the video, subscribe to the channel for me. We'll be back here all 2025. Hey, Jot Picks.